MeMonster.
Chapter 116. Autumn current plan was a perfect one. Even though the plan had successfully damaged Saintess Bianca's fame and made the four male leads confront each other, in the end, Autumn himself was also caught up in this. Autumn was still looking at Saintess Bianca with the corner of his eyes even when the sword of Swordmaster Sodier was pointed at his neck. If only Saintess Bianca was a normal protagonist, it may be possible for her to regress right here right now with the help of the world. However, it wasn't possible because she was an insidious person without any ability to do so. In other words, in order for her to use regression skill, Bianca had to prepare accordingly. And thanks to Princess Sahar, Autumn was aware of the condition to activate regression skill. The condition for turning the time is to bring together the one who is closest to the goddess and 99 faithful priestesses to pray together. 99 priestesses together with the one loved by the goddess had to pray desperately in order for their voices to reach Kater, the goddess of time and season. Crisis has occurred to the protagonist Bianca. A crisis befall upon her, however Autumn wasn't sure how the probability would manifest for a transmigrator. Perhaps, the probability would strengthen charm Monopoly SSS rank skill, which was the strongest characteristic for the romance fantasy genre. I have to stop it. As Autumn tried to move his fingertips and the sword of the strongest swordsman, Sodier, moved closer towards his neck. In addition, 3 other male lead were also keeping each other in check. Since their gazes were all directed towards the Saintess, Autumn thought it would be impossible for him to sneak out of this fight and catch Saintess Bianca. In the end, he had no other choice but to fight. Autumn current level was 145. He was few levels short from becoming an S rank. Meanwhile, all the male lead were around level 150 or even higher. The difference between level 145, which equal to a rank, and level 150, which equal to S rank, was merely 5 levels. However, it could be said that those 5 levels difference was akin to heaven and earth. The power of a rank was still considered at the level of human being. Meanwhile, S rank was something beyond the limits of human. They become a completely different existence. Although Autumn lived most of his life as a F rank, he had met countless S rank superhumans. He also had traveled around countless worlds and became aware of how much power those who had level higher than 150 levels could exert. Of course, Autumn had some experience in dealing with S rank, SS rank, or even SSS rank enemy. However, whenever he did, he had always avoided a frontal battle and fought with various things that could be used as his advantage. In fact, when Salvatore Constantini, a SS rank superhuman, went on a rampage, Autumn succeeded in subduing him by using dozens of abandoned tanks and a power plant. However, right now, there's nothing like that. In addition, he had 4 male lead to take care of. Autumn was sure he would die if he fought fairly right now. However, the fight was unavoidable. I have no choice but to fight unfairly. Autumn decided to take advantage of the fact that the 4 male lead weren't checking on himself, but each other. Beep. Bam. Ahi. Sodier, who was aiming his sword towards Autumn's neck, swiftly retreated as he felt a shockwave erupted around his body. If only he felt a slight movement of mana, Sodier was sure he would be able to cut it down. But unbeknownst to him, Autumn was using something that utilizes ether, not mana. Sodier hurriedly fixed his posture and tried to cut Autumn down, but it was already too late. Autumn was already rolling away from him using the momentum of the shock. Autumn, who successfully moved away from Sodier, threw a lot of landmines on the floor to obstruct Sodier's path. He also pulled his brand new gun, Winchester 777, out of his inventory. Winchester 777 was an alternate version of Mega Shooter. Unlike Mega Shooter, which uses ether bullet as its ammo, Winchester 777 uses mana bullet for its ammo. It was also much lighter and convenient compared to Mega Shooter. However, it also had its own disadvantage. Only 1 bullet could be loaded at a time. However, it posed no problem for him, who now had an A-rank physical ability. Even while Autumn was in the midst of jumping in the air, he could easily load a bouncing shot into the gun and aim at Tower Master Haryun in one fluid motion. Sensing an attack that will soon befall upon him, Harryun casted a blue round shield in a hurry. However, UC Autumn had already pointed his gun towards him. UC Autumn's world started moving slowly as he activated his Concentration S+ rank skill. After a round of calculating, he fired his gun, aiming it at one exact spot. Boom! The moment the bullet flew and hit Harryun's shield, it bounced away and flew straight into Emperor Cyril's abdomen. "Kyuk, what are you doing?" "No, it wasn't something that I did." Since Cyril had S-rank stamina, UC Autumn attack wasn't enough to scratch him. However, as long as he could make Harryun and Cyril fight each other, it's all good. As UC Autumn rolled over the floor again, he loaded one more bullet. This time, his target was Pope Kane, however, thanks to the swordsman Sodier, who had already aimed his swords towards UC Autumn's neck once again. He couldn't take a shot at Pope Kane. This crazy did, he just ignorantly run through the minefield. Kiang! The sharp sound of metal rang as Winchester and sword collided. Even though he had to step back for a moment because he needs to focus on the battle of strength he's in right now, UC Autumn still had no intention of letting the Pope go. If the bullet doesn't work, he just has to use his mouth. Oh, there the Pope is aiming for the Saintess. When UC Autumn's voice reached both the Tower Master and the Emperor, both of them quickly focused their attention towards the Pope. Immediately after that, Sodier's sword clashed against the armor on his stomach. Remaining battery, 61%. With only that one sword attack, about half of the ether shield in UC Autumn's armor flew away. UC Autumn hurriedly attached a 10 cm ether blade at the end of Winchester. Since the blade output rank was around 1st grade, it was possible for UC Autumn to fight at S rank even as in a rank who couldn't use an aura blade. Immediately after one collision, UC Autumn's world slowed down once again. After blocking Sodier's sword, UC Autumn quickly rotated the Winchester and reloaded a bullet. After that, he pointed his gun at Sodier's neck and pulled the trigger. Whoosh! Sodier avoided the incoming bullets by bending his head to the side. However, that wasn't the only attack that coming. Right after the bullet flew past him, a sword struck his chest. Not only that, right after the blade struck, UC Autumn flew towards his side and shot another round of bullets before completely moving away from him. You use such a mysterious weapon. With the combination of his swordsmanship, magic, and shooting, UC Autumn was able to enter the ranks of superhuman. However, if even one of them was missing, his combat power would be reduced tremendously. It was only natural for him to be pushed by the experts of close fighting when he fought in close quarter. The same applied too in the case of long-distance fighting. UC Autumn would be naturally pushed back by a pure magician. So UC Autumn created his own style of fighting. He covered all of his shortcomings with swords, guns, and magic enchanted bullets. Pow! His bullets were by no means ordinary. The bouncing bullet he shot earlier towards Harryun was also a magic bullet that was specially crafted to bounce when it meets a mana barrier. UC Autumn also had some bullets that would change into a pillar of fire or a small tornado once it hits the target. Alone, it might not have enough lethal power, however, it was enough to confuse UC Autumn's enemy. Every time UC Autumn's Winchester and Sodier's sword met each other, UC Autumn would rotate his gun soon after and continue to load another bullet. Even though the number of bullets he had was limited, because it was personally enchanted by Yekaterina, UC Autumn didn't even think about it. C Autumn, Tower Master, is located 7 m away from the N60 direction. When he heard the location of the other male lead, UC Autumn deliberately went there to let their attack collide with each other's. Kyokyu. It's a mistake I couldn't avoid. Their attacks tangled and inflicted damage on each other. In addition to that, there were a lot of ether mines spread around the temple that couldn't be detected by their magic. They could explode at any time. Damn it! Sodier's composure gradually broke. Even though a battle of swords was dangerous, he had confidence to enjoy it as much as possible, but his opponent kept doing something that irritated him. Using his quick expert-level swordsman's footwork, he jumped around and installed a weird magic that sparked electricity, erupted flame pillars, caused the ground to shake or collapse, and ultimately caused confusion. In addition, he deliberately ran where the other three were fighting and tangled everyone's attacks, and after causing the chaos, he would run away alone. Eventually, Sodier, who couldn't contain his anger anymore, released his full power. A swordmaster's aura was something that could easily be controlled. It was also able to form any shape that Sodier wanted. Until now, he was holding back and tried to not use all of his strength, but now it was impossible to do so anymore. That damn ignorant guy. As one man began to show his power, the other male leads also poured out all of their strength. As a huge fireball poured down from the sky, the third temple was halved in just one blow, and when a sword was lightly swung, all the pillars in the building were cut. The male leads have revealed their original power. Hunter, you see Autumn, it's time to get serious. I am already doing my best since the beginning. One shrimp that annoyed the four large whales was forced to flee from one place to another while being swept away by the massive currents they produced. Meanwhile, Saintess Bianca, who sneaked out of the temple, ran around the capital quickly. Bianca was already anxious when she saw the dark cloud the first time, but eventually a light shower started to pour from the sky. She was annoyed by her wet clothes, but she couldn't just stop. It's wrong, it shouldn't be like this. She admits it, she was blinded by greed. At first, she just wanted to live, so she tried to run away from the capital. However, she realized that if she took advantage of four male who showed interest in her, she could bury Princess Sahar, take her place as heroine, and live peacefully. That's why at some point all she did was trying to bury Princess Sahar, and when she succeeded to some extent, she was already in a situation where she could live well enough. However, greed struck her. She deceived and dazzled the male leads with the sweet words saying you are my only one because she didn't want to let even one man go. She just realized that she shouldn't have done that. If only she could turn the time. If that's the case, I have confidence that I will never be noticed. Bianca clenched his fist. In the first place, four were enough, but one more was greedy. If it weren't for that man, this would never have happened. Bianca fastened her step. She was on her way to the temple to pray to Goddess Cater to send her back to the past, just like what Princess Sahar did in the original. She was sure that Goddess Cater would accept her prayer because she was a saintess. Slam. While running without hesitation, Bianca bumps into someone. However, unlike herself who fell to the floor, the other person did not fall. When Bianca looked up and checked, she saw Princess Sahar, who was running in the rain just like herself. Saintess, where's night you see autumn? Princess Sahar had a very urgent expression for some reason. It was as if something went wrong. However, since Bianca was not aware of that, she immediately got up and ran again towards the Church of Time Temple. As she stepped through the door of the church, hundreds of believers who had been praying at the moment turned their heads and looked at Bianca. Saintess Nim. What the you are all wet in the rain, come on, come here. All in all, there were currently 500 believers in front of Bianca, 99 devout priestesses and 401 believers. All of them were followers of the goddess of time and season, Cater. Bianca exhaled before talking in a calm but powerful voice. Everyone listen. As the saintess, who is still drenched from the rain, starts speaking, everyone turns silent. From now on, I will say a very special prayer. You could ask some questions about this later, but since faith is an important aspect for this prayer, I would be grateful if everyone believes in me and follows me. The amount of faith was really important. It was enough to have only one saintess who was the closest existence to the goddess and 99 priestesses. But now there were even 401 believers there. Bianca was pretty sure she would succeed. She approached the statue of goddess with her solemn, watery steps and the fall to her knees. Then Bianca politely gathered her hands in front of her chest. As pure white light began to pour out toward her saint, anyone present bowed their heads with solemn expressions, and the saintess, with a voice full of sincerity, asked the goddess of time and season, Cater. Goddess, if you can hear me, please accept my request, help me start over again. On a rainy night, a hymn sung by a girl resonated throughout the city. Chapter 117. What a waste. That was the only thought that filled UC Autumn's mind. UC Autumn, who was leaning on a half-destroyed pillar, placed his hand on his abdomen. The first-grade ether suit, which was advertised as something that could make its wearer feel comfortable even while being trampled by an elephant, was shattered. Blood was also pouring out from his abdomen. The special skill Death Rejection of the item Death of Dawn is activated. Lifespan decreases rapidly. Thankfully, the inner armor that UC Autumn obtained the other day quickly wrapped around his body and rapidly healed his wounds. Even though Death Rejection consumed his lifespan, he thought it was way better than dying. Professor, please stay still. He managed to keep his life thanks to Araceli, who came as soon as the fight broke out. Due to the recent image-enhancing event, she had told UC Autumn that there was only 1% mana left inside her body. Thus, UC Autumn had clearly told her to not get involved in the fight. However, she still came to his rescue even when there was a risk that she could be swept up in the battle. If you don't have mana, you're nothing but a civilian. Just what are you thinking by coming here? I come here to feed Professor with potion. UC Autumn laughed wryly when he saw Araceli hurriedly putting a potion towards his mouth. He was completely drained. He couldn't even muster any energy to lift his finger. He thought if it's not for Araceli, he would have died here. As UC Autumn slowly turned his head, he could see the aftermath of the fight that started at the third temple. The scale of the fight had become so massive, it even spread towards the streets of the capital city of the Empire. The Emperor, the Tower Master, the Sword Master, and the Pope never stopped fighting. Each of them coveted the Saintess and desired to be her only one, just like what they thought originally. The love fight between superhumans, which started because of a single woman, eventually caused the city to be destroyed. However, the end of the fight seems to have come. See Autumn, the probability of the 4 male lead is slowly fading. Did they die? I am not sure about that, but it's unlikely. However, because they've been fighting not for the sake of the protagonist, even though their powers are reserved for the sake of the protagonist, there's high possibility that they will lose their power. Even though they won't die, it doesn't matter. 4 of them aren't the protagonist, however, they are a factor that should be eliminated in order to kill the real protagonist. And what's happening now is a situation where UC Autumn could get rid of the probability without having to kill them. It was a perfect development. The image of Saintess Bianca had fallen to the gutter and the 4 male lead had also fallen. Thus, the Saintess wouldn't have any probability left to protect her. She can't do anything but run away if she doesn't want a bullet to lodge in her forehead. UC Autumn really wanted to send Araceli to kill Saintess Bianca, but with only 1% mana left on her body, he thought that she must be struggling just to sustain her life. Because unlike himself, he knew that every time Araceli moved to a new dimension, she expended a lot of mana to adapt to the new dimension as well as to understand the language. Moreover, UC Autumn really felt grateful towards Araceli, who helped him throughout this mission, and he wanted to give her something as a repayment. Step. UC Autumn, here you are. Oh, Princess. Princess Sahar stopped and stared at UC Autumn. Unlike her usual appearances, she was a mess. Her clothes were drenched, her ordinary shoes were torn apart because it couldn't withstand her strong steps. The usual beautiful, elegant, sharp, and dangerous Princess Sahar couldn't be seen. She carefully approached UC Autumn with her trembling steps, falling to her knees. For you to be like this, just what happened? Princess Sahar could see a very big wound on UC Autumn's abdomen. It was a wound inflicted by Sodier. He, who was extremely agitated because of UC Autumn action, bombarded UC Autumn with attacks filled with his aura. In the end, one of his attacks successfully penetrated UC Autumn's abdomen. No matter how skillful UC Autumn is, in the end he is still an A rank. He lacks strength to match a S rank in frontal fight even after using everything in his arsenal. Also, the degree of wound that UC Autumn suffered could be considered as acute, one taking into account that he had directly received it from someone with S rank power. Looking at UC Autumn's condition, Princess Sahar couldn't help but blame herself. She was the one who told the Emperor about the relationship between UC Autumn and Bianca. She was also the one who used the situation to her favor by deliberately spreading rumors throughout the Empire. However, she had never thought that things would escalate to this degree. What can I do now you've fought until you become like this? Princess Sahar bit her lips tightly. She didn't know about his purpose, goal, or anything else about UC Autumn. The only thing that she knew was the fact that he appeared out of the blue at some point and he's been doing anything for her sake. He was the one who dragged her back from the depth of the abyss and helped her to once again gain recognition from the continent's people and the Emperor. He was also the one who helped her to be able to offer her prayer towards Goddess Kater again as a believer. Princess Sahar was really grateful towards Autumn. With all the things he had done and returned to her, he was sure that she could live happily. Princess Saintess Bianca must be killed, Autumn said as he coughed a mouthful of blood. Looking at his condition, Princess Sahar clenched her fist tightly to the point where blood trickled from her hand. In the end, he was doing all this for the sake of killing the Saintess. Didn't you tell me that you fought a lot when growing up? Princess Sahar's expression softened. She soon regained her composure as she heard Autumn's joke. It was the thing he always does when he wants to reassure her. From now on, what can I do for you? Princess Sahar realized it wasn't the time to lose her mind in rage. She was aware that Autumn wasn't someone who would do something without a plan. And this time, too, she felt that Autumn already had a plan in his mind even though he couldn't finish it. Autumn rolled his eyes. If he could, he wanted to ask Princess Sahar to run straight towards the Saintess and kill her. However, he could hear a holy hymn echoed throughout the city signaling that it was too late. Even in the midst of heavy rain, the dark clouds split apart and a small beam of light fell toward the church in the distance. It seems that Saintess Bianca had begun to pray to Goddess Kater. Autumn was sure now that they were late. If so, there was only one way left for them to kill Saintess Bianca. Please do something, but not for my sake. What are you talking about? Do it for yourself, princess. Please pray one more time. Pray and ask Goddess Kater to turn back the time. Princess Sahar's eyes shake wildly. Impossible. I mean, I was stripped from my position as child of goddess. No. Besides, I don't have 99 priestesses who believe and follow me. My faith is very poor compared to them. Autumn reached out and grabbed Princess Sahar's trembling hand. Then he opened his eyes wide and looked straight towards Princess Sahar's purple eyes. You can do it. It wasn't an unfounded belief. It was the result of Autumn's thinking based on the information he acquired. From the beginning, Autumn always moved while avoiding the route that could lead to Saintess Bianca regressing at her death because of the probability. However, with the current situation where the 4 male lead had run wild and all citizens of the Empire no longer trusted the Saintess, it was no longer possible for Bianca to regress due to the probability. Moreover, since she was not a Saintess in the first place but an extra concept protagonist of romance fantasy, the correction she received was in the form of charm, not holy power. Even though Autumn was 100% sure that Bianca would pray together with 99 most devoted priestesses, he was convinced that their faith would still fall short from Princess Sahar, who had already succeeded in regressing once. Princess, go say your prayer to the goddess. After saying so, Autumn put his hand on the floor helplessly. Looking at that, Princess Sahar clenched her fist and raised her head. Princess Sahar felt that she didn't have the qualification to meet the goddess anymore. She thought that all of her faith was gone as she was stripped from her place as a child of goddess. But she decided it was not the time to dwell on that. She would meet the goddess with a thick face and ask her a favor shamelessly. Princess Sahar, who rose from her seat, walked toward the center of the half-collapsed third temple. She was aware that compared to Saintess Bianca and her 99 priestesses in the church, her situation was so shabby. Her appearance was unsightly, the temple was also destroyed in half, and even the remaining statue had its wings smashed. Even so, there's one thing that she felt she had better than Saintess Bianca on the church. Zwoosh. Unlike the church, thanks to the earlier fight, the sky was visible in the third temple. Compared to those who pray in the church, Princess Sahar thought that maybe her prayer would reach the goddess faster. In the middle of the rain which directly hit her body, Princess Sahar laughed at the absurdness of her own thought before looking up towards the sky. She didn't even put her hands together or kneel, she just looked at the sky blankly. And then she said, "Goddess, I am here." Meanwhile in the church, pillars of light descended on the church. Bianca and her 500 priestesses could feel divine power seeped on their body while basking in the light. Right, this is it. She never knew that it would be successful. No, to be exact, she was never thinking about it in the first place. However, she was always confident she could do it because she was a saintess, the closest human to the goddess. Slowly, Bianca felt as if her body was getting sucked somewhere. Reality distorted and another, higher-level world unfolded in front of her. In this mysterious purple world, Bianca could see a silver-colored woman's silhouette standing quietly in the middle of a cogwheels of a clock interlocking with each other. Bianca was sure it was Goddess Cater, the goddess who oversaw time and seasons, the same divine being who sent Princess Sahar, the evil woman in the original, back to the past. "Goddess, it's me, Saintess Bianca. Goddess, please listen to me." Bianca smiled brightly. She is only one step away from starting anew. Thinking so, Bianca called for Goddess Cater, but she somehow felt uncomfortable. It seems like someone." At that moment, the goddess turned her head away from Bianca and looked somewhere else. Bianca was thrown down to reality. What just happened? What? Did the divine light disappear? Bianca hurriedly looked behind her. The mystical purple world surrounded by cogwheels and Goddess Cater had disappeared. She found herself back in the church. But this time there were no pillars of light that shone upon it. How is this possible? When Bianca was still taken aback and tried to understand what just happened, a priest kicked the door of the church open and cried, Saintess Nim, over there, another pillar of divine light is pouring down." What? Bianca ran out of the church in a hurry, and indeed, the priest wasn't lying. In the distance, she could see the same brilliant pillar of light that moments ago shined upon them. That location is... Bianca stuttered. Color began to leave her face. There was no way she couldn't remember that location. The third temple. Princess Sahar, who threw her body into the hazy purple world, felt the time around her slowing down. Her goddess had listened to her prayer. She came towards Princess Sahar while leaving Bianca behind. However, to her own surprise, Princess Sahar didn't feel happy at all like 1 year ago when she regressed for the first time. Rather, she felt sad when she noticed the goddess was looking at her. 1 year ago, Princess Sahar felt pleased with the idea that she could take revenge on those who had abandoned her, the thought that she could recover everything that had been lost, and that her ruined life could once again be fixed and can unfold properly. At that time, she was happy because there was nothing to lose even if she returned to the past. But her situation was different now. If I turn back the time, what will happen to you, Autumn? Such doubts kept digging into her chest. Although her time with him was a short one, she was filled with the most cherished and happiest memories of her 2 lives. She couldn't help but hesitate, unlike her first time. Even though she knew that if she returns to the past now, she could do anything she wants to, for example, becoming an empress and killing Saintess Bianca who had hindered her. She was not sure what's good in that when all the most precious things for her had to disappear or cease to exist. Warm light suddenly wrapped around Princess Sahar's body. She could feel that Goddess Cater, who was still wrapped in a silver-colored hue, was looking at her. You want to return to the past? Yes, however, I don't want to throw away my memories with him either. You're too greedy, you can't have everything you want. Princess Sahar was certainly aware of that, because she never had what she wanted even once. However, the first and last thing she wanted suddenly appeared. She thought that, wouldn't it be okay for her to be greedy for grabbing both of them? Don't seem to have any intention of backing down. I used to be like that too. Goddess Cater slowly turned her head towards the man Princess Sahar mentioned. He was hugging a girl with a black hair in his arms. It seemed like the girl was someone from another dimension and couldn't stand the twisted time flow in this world. The Maz was truly a unique existence. Even in the midst of the ever-changing passage of time, he wasn't being swept away by it. On top of it, Cater could see a mysterious and graceful gold-colored something behind the man. I envy you. I wouldn't have to regress for thousands of times if I had someone to rely on like you. Goddess Cater was aware that Autumn wouldn't be affected by the time even if she sent Princess Sahar back to the past. However, Goddess Cater herself does not know why it was possible. In the end, without telling Princess Sahar, she decided to use that point to give her a very pleasant trial. I have a way to keep his memory intact. Is that true? I will keep Autumn and that girl right at this time and return the time to a year ago. and when another year passes, he will wake up here again without losing his memories. Then, however, there are conditions. At the word of conditions, Princess Sahar's expression hardened, but Kader did not stop. Kader suggested it because she wanted to see how Princess Sahar would look after realizing the meaning of relationships. Will not return alone, that child Bianca will also return with you. Of you will know the exact same future. Both of you must fight with your own strength without receiving any blessing of the world. How about it? Isn't it interesting? Can you really do it alone without the help of you? Autumn? Sooner or later he will leave anyway, but will you take this risk to leave a short memory about you with him? Princess Sahar's heart trembled wildly. It was such a ridiculous offer. If it were her usual self, Princess Sahar would have refused and returned to the past alone. Because like the goddess said, Autumn would return to his own world sooner or later, and when that time comes, she would be the one who was left alone in this place. But wouldn't he be able to remember and reminisce about the time when he was with her, even when he was in another world? Yes, I'll do it. The corner of Goddess Kader's lips slightly rose. She really liked the fact that Princess Sahar accepted her ridiculous offer because she didn't want him to lose his memories. Good, I will send both you and Bianca back to the past. I don't know if y'all survive even after a year pass or if you will be able to meet Autumn again. Kader laughed slowly as she looked at Princess Sahar, who was staring at herself with her bright and clear purple eyes. Unlike me, you will probably succeed. And then the time starts to move backwards for both Princess Sahar and Saint Bianca. Detecting changes in the world line. Autumn groaned as he opened his eyes. Then he slowly put Araceli, who had passed out on his arms because she was unable to withstand the passage of time, on the floor and raised his head. He felt something has changed. It was the same feeling he felt back when he fought the infinite regressor Protagonist. Moreover, unlike the shabby, half-destroyed third temple where he passed out earlier, he found himself in a luxurious, shiny, gold-plated room. Where is this place? Autumn supported his wounded body with his hand and stood up. He walked slowly along the red carpet spread out on the floor. After reaching the end of the red carpet, he could see a huge silver-colored door with a dragon sculpture engraved on it. And suddenly, with creaking sounds, the door opens up, followed by a woman walking in. Princess Sahar. She still had beautiful silver hair and purple eyes that resembled amethyst. But unlike her previous, devastated self, her gait was full of confidence, and her eyes were also filled with dignity. Autumn felt like he was looking at a completely different person for a moment. Sahar looked towards Autumn and smiled brightly. After that, she points at the golden crown that sat on the top of her head. I am not a princess anymore, but an empress. Pardon me. I caught the emperor and killed him. It was a pretty successful coup. No, what is it? Saintess was buried together with the Pope. It leaves a pretty bitter aftertaste, though. Wait, please speak slowly. Sahar stopped and laughed out loud when she realized that she had made a mistake. Sorry, I speak too fast, don't I? Sahar smiled playfully. Somehow her smile resembles the vicious expression that Autumn often had. In the meantime, a lot has happened without you. A lot of things happened, and Sahar had overcome them all. So let's talk slowly. Because now, Sahar could spend some time with him again. Chapter 118. The time span of 1 year was a really short time both to change something or to achieve something. Maybe that's why, after Sahar regressed one more time, she had been trying more desperately than ever. Learning from her failure in her first and second life, Sahar didn't waste even 1 second in her third life in order to accomplish what she wanted. She kept running, and overcame everything in her way in order to show Autumn something more beautiful than her second life, as well as herself, who had achieved it all. Sahar was aware she wasn't the only one who knew the future. Saintess Bianca also knew the same exact future as her. That fact alone became quite a burden for her. That's why she kept taking an aggressive stance on each and every matter without caring about her own life. However, Sahar did not need any future information at all. She completely twisted the whole future with every action she takes. Sahar had the power to upset the political struggle with only minor incidents, such as when someone gets a cold or when someone gives birth to a child. Sahar clearly remembered what goddess Kater told her. The love of the world given to the four male lead was erased by UC Autumn in her second life, while Bianca didn't even get the love of the world in this life. So both of them had to fight with their skills alone. If Sahar could be honest, Bianca wasn't even an enemy for her. 4 months after she regressed, she was already in a position where she could kill Bianca comfortably. That day, Bianca was kneeling as she cried for forgiveness. She told Sahar, "Please spare me. I never had any ill intention towards you. I did all that because I wanted to live, so please spare me this once." And Sahar replied dryly, "Do you want to live?" "Yes, yes, please, I'll do whatever you want if you spare my life." And then Sahar said with a bright smile, "Then remember that desperation even after your death, because I also wanted to live." After killing the Saintess, Sahar decided to live only for herself and UC Autumn, who would return in 8 months. In the midst of all, Sahar had expected that the Emperor would fall in love with her. However, she had no intention of using it. She felt that if she uses someone else's feelings for her own gain, she would be no different from the Saintess. But when the Emperor tried to touch her body, Sahar couldn't tolerate it. She knew that if she stayed still and let the Emperor touch her body, her dream of becoming Empress would become true. However, she would rather bite her own tongue than let another man touch her body. And when she came to her senses, she finds herself stabbing a knife into the Emperor's back. Because of what had happened, Sahar planned an improvised coup d'etat altogether. It wasn't an easy task. She had to face countless nobles who lead their respective army as well as the wizards of the magic tower. Moreover, every night, assassins always come to kill her. She couldn't fall asleep comfortably even for a day. She had to withstand and overcome the resentment of countless people. "I am the Empress of the Empire." When Sahar finally declared herself as an empress, there's no one who had the guts to rebel against her anymore. Was it because all the rebellious people had died? No, that's wrong. It was because everyone who was tired of the tyrannical emperor, who was stained with madness, sided with Sahar and welcomed her revolution, which intends to make the empire prosper. Through the blessing of people of the empire, Empress Sahar finally did what she wanted to do. Soon after, she declared that her home would be in the third temple, a place abandoned by all and a place where no one can step in. While everyone was questioning her decision, she quickly built her new castle. Empress Sahar herself even helped in the process in order to build her castle sooner. And when the third temple was finally reborn as a luxurious palace, she could see UC Autumn once again. Princess Sahar. Empress Sahar burst into laughter that resembled UC Autumn's laugh when she saw the ever-so-composed UC Autumn confused and taken aback. Just what exactly happened? We have a lot of time, so let's slowly talk about it. And a month since then, Empress Sahar spent every minute and second together with UC Autumn. She told everything that had happened in the empire with great details to him. She told him that it was a lot of work and it was quite difficult, but it was also the most rewarding year. Maybe she told him that in order to reassure him, to tell him that I am living like this now. I've become the Empress of the Empire and was loved by everyone. Don't worry, because I had accomplished such a great feat with my own power. By the end of her story, UC Autumn has gone. He disappeared as suddenly as he had appeared back on that rainy day. Empress Sahar couldn't hold him back by asking him to be her partner because he had always said, "There is something I have to do." He didn't want to prevent him from achieving his dream and purpose. "It's lonely." "Is that so?" "Yes, it's very lonely. I feel like I'm alone in this empire." Empress Sahar said so as she sat on a silver dragon throne which allowed her to see everything in the empire. Even at this moment, millions of people of the empire were looking only at her. However, she had no intention to look back on them. On her side, Kelly said, "Then leave. If you want to find it, you will be able to find it." "Bud went to a place I don't know." "I once thought so as well." "What?" At Kelly's words, a question Empress Sahar had in her mind for so long resurfaced. UC Autumn was certainly someone from another world. So, what about Kelly Rankle? Where on earth did the black wizard lady, who didn't exist in her first life, come from? To be honest, until now, I still don't know in detail where the professor is. His hometown is so far away that I can't detect it nor reach it. But throughout my life, I keep trying to track him, and now I am able to follow the professor's trail like this. Kelly burst into laughter and turned around. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean you wouldn't do it right. As she said that, Araceli disappeared. In the end, Empress Sahar, who was left alone, could only stare at the place where Araceli disappeared. The world was full of things that cannot be understood, and there are numerous things that she still did not know. Before long, she screamed someone's name as if she was possessed. Kader, are you there? Is there any person in the world who calls a goddess so rudely like you? Just answer my question, is it possible for humans to cross dimensions? What are you talking about? Goddess Kader seems to be taken aback, but she gently raised the corner of her mouth. She found Sahar's question rather interesting. Sahar, who found a completely different ending than herself, was about to walk a whole new path. It's something that she, who could foresaw time, couldn't predict at all. Not sure, but I think there's nothing impossible because even time could be reversed. You are the one who turns time back. Do you really think so? That was an ambiguous yet meaningful question. Humans are more powerful than you think. I have seen humans who created worlds, humans who killed God after running through space and time, and humans who, like your knight, changed the fate of other worlds. I also saw humans who were finally able to change their past, after failing to do so even after trying for thousands of times. As if Sahar understood something, her expression gradually brightened, and Goddess Kader concluded her speech. Such things are possible, don't you think? Crossing dimensions isn't impossible. As soon as she heard Goddess Kader's words, Empress Sahar got up from her seat and ran towards somewhere. Goddess Kader, who looked at her back, slowly turned around as she felt Sahar's presence slowly fading. Even with her power as goddess of time and season, she doesn't know what will happen in her future. It could be dangerous, or Sahar could fail and despair. Nevertheless, she was never scared. Rather, the most fearful thing for the goddess of time and season was a fixed future. It was very exciting to be able to see an unknown future unfold. To be able to paint the future yourself, it will be quite fun. Goddess Kader hugged her fluttering chest tightly and closed her eyes, and she completely disappeared from this world. Successfully returned to the original world. When I opened my eyes, I could see the familiar ceiling of my office stool. Somehow, this mission left quite a bit of lingering feeling on my heart, so I almost couldn't come back. I kept thinking of staying for one more day. If the client hadn't warned me, if you don't return soon, you could be assimilated here forever, I might have stayed there for several months. So that's why it's easier to hunt monsters. Monsters were creatures without emotions. There's no need to interact emotionally with anyone. By the way, Autumn must have learned a lot from this trip. That's right. By witnessing the destruction of Saintess Bianca, I was reminded once again about human love. Of course, I didn't force anyone to love me because I didn't have skill or talent related to charm. However, just because it was real love doesn't mean I could thoughtlessly respond to it. The first one I thought of was Taylor 9, followed by Seol Yoongyun and Yekaterina. Sai, what am I supposed to do? Because you had interfered with the fate of others, their fate intertwined with your own fate and has become a big weight. If you are an ordinary person, there's a saying that you would get married as soon as you found your fated one. But what will happen if you interfere with fate? The system explained that it was inevitable for the relationship to end up that way. I am not going to ruin other people's lives, am I? There is no such thing, because undoing an intertwined fate is a difficult thing to do. That's fortunate. As time slowly passed, as I stared blankly at the ceiling, I jumped up from my seat. There were a lot of things to do. There was no time to be sitting idly. First of all, I changed my messenger's profile message to dispatch ended and then contacted several people. The time I stayed in another world this time was a little over 3 months. Even so, only about a week had passed on Earth. By hunting the protagonist this time, my level has risen by 7 levels to 152. The time to take a physical examination was in front of my eyes, because stats-wise I had achieved S rank. I need to sharpen my mind while experimenting with the skill I got this time. With such a trivial thought, I put my hands in my sweatpants and walked out. However, on the first floor of the office building. Click, click, click. It's Hunter Autumn. Hunter Autumn, please tell us about the special superpower curriculum that was announced by Hunter Taylor 9 while she was promoted to SS rank. Master Yu Autumn, can you tell us in detail about the magical weapon V3KK0 that you developed? Is it true that superpower could also grow more effectively with the help of martial arts and magic? Hunter Yu Autumn, please answer us. I was taken aback by the sudden barrage of questions of the reporters. Yekaterina, just what did you do while I wasn't there? Chapter 119. 2 days after Yu Autumn left for another world. Hunter Taylor 9, 38th person to be promoted to SS rank. Why did Taylor 9, a Russian, choose Korean Guild another league? The news of Taylor 9's promotion was written in numerous articles all over the world. Taylor herself tried to refuse all kinds of coverage because it was troublesome. However, Yekaterina wouldn't let this opportunity pass by. Nice to meet you, I am Yekaterina, the Chief Executive Officer of the Another League. Click, click, click. Hundreds of cameras took her pictures as soon as she introduced herself. Taylor, who was sitting right next to her, was forced to answer reporters' questions because of Yekaterina, while making a very annoyed expression. Hunter Taylor, I heard you were asked to return to Russia. Can I ask you why you chose to stay in Korea? I stay because all of you are so lovely, sweetie, I love you. We know that the government of Russia has announced its official position. They said that because Hunter Taylor 9 was someone with Russian nationality, you will be counted as an SS rank superhuman from Russia. What do you think about it? Oh, I changed my nationality tilde. I heard that there is a very special superpower curriculum unique to the Another League Guild. Is that true? Wait, really? Do you want to say anything in regard to S rank? Hunter Lee Mosi remark, SS rank or the S rank, they have their own position. Who is that? Of course, just like always, Taylor 9 didn't answer the question clearly. Reporters were already familiar with Taylor 9's behavior, so their gaze naturally turned towards Yekaterina. Feeling the attention at her, Yekaterina sighed and took Taylor's microphone. Please ask your question to me from now on. After that, the press conference became a normal Q&A session. The reporters were able to catch their breath thanks to Yekaterina, who had a gentle and calm personality. Yes, in fact, Another League has a special superpower curriculum. We are willing to teach those who didn't have any superpower if they wish, and we could also help those who already had a superpower and help them to develop it further, just like what we did with Taylor 9. In addition, for magic, we had established Yekaterina Magic Lab inside the hideout of Another League. In the future, we are going to do an experiment to combine ether dispenser technology with magic. And in regards to that, we promise to provide a good treatment for ether craftsmen who joined our guild. We are also planning to recruit some scholars who are interested in studying magic. Together with Taylor's promotion press conference, Yekaterina also advertised Another League as a place full of talent that awaits people to join. So, 3 days later, Another League began to be crowded with hunters and researchers who wanted to join the guild. Yekaterina was so busy handling thousands of interviews to the point she didn't have any time to pick up her phone. At the same time, Russia also announced their official position in order to keep Yekaterina's magic lab in check. Morian Guild, we will implement a magic education policy. It will be a study that any Russian citizen can learn. It was a preemptive attack from Russia and Morian. They, who so far wanted to keep magic for themselves, suddenly announced that they were willing to teach magic with some conditions and benefits attached. It was a huge announcement from them, and people were thinking of going to Russia rather than waiting for Another League, who only recruited famous scholars. Yekaterina's worries deepened, not only because she was preoccupied with famous scholars, but more importantly, the fact that Morian defeated them for every little thing was putting her in a bad mood. Ah, is that so? Why don't you do YTube? Yes. Shin Haijai, the direct secretary Seol Jungyun of New Murim, solved Yekaterina's worry in an unexpected way. YTube. Yes, I think it would be a good if you use YTube. Yekaterina fell into deep thoughts as she touched a dark, suspicious armor which was delivered to her by Shin Haijai. It was an armor found in the House of Goblin and was brought to Yekaterina, a wizard, because people of Murim could feel the energy of a dead goblin from the armor and were constantly cursed by it. Doesn't that hurt when I wear it? It keeps bothering me. It's fine, there's no problem. Rather than a bother, Yekaterina feels like stroking a puppy when she touched it. Yekaterina contemplated while hugging the armor on her chest. Well, it's definitely not a bad choice. The guild that Yu Autumn envisioned in the first place was a guild that could protect himself and a place where he could recruit colleagues to move together with him. He said it would be enough to recruit very few elite members, but Yekaterina had no intention of doing so at all. She wanted to create a perfect guild that would not lose to anyone. She wanted to create a guild that could defeat the large Morian guild and Lost Day guild that threw Yu Autumn away. When Yekaterina told Yu Autumn about it, his response was only "Is that so?" and he said he wasn't really interested in doing it, but he also said do whatever you want to do. I have no intention of blocking your dreams. He also allowed Yekaterina to do anything she wanted to do. In other words, no matter what she does, no one could argue with her, so she decided to do YTube filming soon. Of course, even if she showed her magic to the world through YTube, she had no intention to share all of her knowledge. If the level of magic of Morian Guild was 1, then the level of Yu Autumn's magic was 10. Yekaterina only showed level 2 through YTube. After witnessing it, people would naturally turn their attention from the Morian Guild to another league. In addition, what if Yekaterina promised to teach more advanced magic to those who joined another league? Scholars who had lived their life for math will never be able to stand it and would naturally flock towards another league. I think it would be good. Wow, wait, awesome, I am like a genius. What is it? How about opening an official channel for another league and includes Ha Sun-young's Mugong, Yekaterina's magic, and Taylor 9's superpower curriculum? Can we do that? Of course we can. Besides, all three of you are a beauty, so the channel subscribers will be huge too. My god, let's start as soon as possible. Tell master and help out. And just like that, another league official YTube channel was created. In the span of a short 3 days after its creation, the number of subscribers of the channel already surpassed 4 million. The subscribers were mainly those who wanted to learn Mugong, scholars who wanted to learn magic, and those who wanted a special curriculum developed by SS rank superhuman. However, those who subscribed just because they liked the appearances of the trainer weren't small. With that much attention, every video uploaded to the channel is always followed by an article, the new records of view in the shortest time. Not only that, Ha Sun-young, Yekaterina, and Taylor 9's names were always competing fiercely in which name had the most real-time search terms. In addition to those three, Yi Sahai, who appeared as an assistant in all the videos, was steadily fixed in the search rankings because many people were curious about her. And now back in the present. That's what happened in just 1 week. Yes. Yu Autumn was once again surprised by Yekaterina's capability as he watched her teaching magic to scholars and students from all over the world by renting a whole huge lecture room at a university in Seoul. That explains how the Library of White Witch level was increased to C. It seems that Yekaterina was working hard on her recent magic research. When Yu Autumn looked across the window, he could see bulky athletes were sitting on their knees to receive Ha Sun-young's teaching. It was quite mystical to see Ha Sun-young, who had smaller stature than the others, was the teacher. There were also dozens of cameras running to film them. It was all to create a video for YTube. It's called sample. Even if you tasted a little bit of it, you won't be able to get out of it. Yi Sahai said so as she showed Yu Autumn YTube live stream of Taylor 9, who was busy teaching about superpower. Now look, you're not pulling ether like me, but like a dog. I mean, try to make it fun, cool, and sexy. Okay, that's it, right. It works. In the video, Taylor 9 was teaching her way to some talented superhuman. And surprisingly, when Taylor 9 made some weird gibberish, one of the superhumans quickly understood it and did it. Of course, they were someone who were chosen after a strict screening process. Even so, the fact that they understood Taylor's gibberish was quite a shock for Yu Autumn and Yi Sahai. It was something that both Yu Autumn and Yi Sahai, who didn't have a superpower, couldn't understand. That's probably something only for superhuman, right? I think so too. But there was one problem: Taylor 9's superpowers curriculum wasn't perfect. Although she pioneered a new path after combining superpower with magic, it wasn't yet at a level that could cover various superpowers abilities that exist in the world. Gilma should also teach. Gilma is short version of Guild Master. But I don't have superpowers. But didn't you teach Taylor any before? Well, that was because Taylor is a genius. Then you can teach another genius and ask them to teach it to other people. Now this has become a very important project for our guild. Gilmanim must not be left out, don't you think so? And just like that, UC Autumn became a professor of superpower who doesn't have a superpower. If someone asked who's the fastest rising hunter in Northern Europe, 7 out of 10 people would answer it with Celeste Costantini. She debuted as a hunter at the age of only 17. In just 2 years, she had become a C-rank superhuman with body-strengthening type superpower. She was showing a very unparalleled track record. C-rank hunter Celeste breaks through an A-rank dungeon alone. What is the identity of the body-strengthening technique she uses? Costantini's swordsmanship is recognized even by the swordmasters. However, her rank could be considered as pretty low. Unlike natural interference-type superpower which randomly manifests and could be a rank immediately after awakening, body-strengthening type superpower belonging to the physical world was bound to manifest as an E rank. It will slowly get stronger and rise in terms of ranking. Nevertheless, being a C-rank superhuman at such a young age proved that she's a genius. Even so, for those who knew Celeste well, great wasn't enough to describe her ability. Celeste Costantini, her swordsmanship was beautiful and sharp. It was something that was akin to Mugong, but there was something different from it. When she swung her sword, it created a splendid flame, just like an exploding firecracker. It could also be like lightning when the storm struck, or just like a raging wave. Few years ago, UC Autumn acknowledged Celeste's talent in swordsmanship. However, at that time, he did not know in detail about her talent as well as how much potential hiding inside her. Thanks to the people of Murem, swordsmanship had become much more renowned these days. However, what would happen when someone with body-strengthening type superpower who was capable of overwhelmingly strengthening their destructive output also mastered the swordsmanship of another world? C-rank Hunter Celeste defeats a rank body-strengthening type villain. C-rank Hunter Celeste made a big achievement in the S-rank rift. C-rank Hunter Celeste, 19 dungeons cleared in a week. Although her rank was low, she had quite a big fanbase. Her expressionless selfie spread through the internet as both meme and challenges, and many Stargram stars were following her Stargram account. However, not enough. Her swordsmanship was now at the level that couldn't be imitated both by people of Murem who were master at Mugong, or by the knights of the fantasy world who were masters in using aura, because of her unique mix of body-strengthening superpower and swordsmanship of another world which had been developed for thousands of years. But she wasn't satisfied yet. However, it was still lacking. In the end, the swordsmanship she possessed was something she learned at surface level from UC Autumn. And even though she pioneered it with her own strength, it was simply insufficient compared to the swordsmanship that other geniuses had studied for thousands of years. Then she remembered that recently, UC Autumn's guild Another League was mentioned quite often and decided, it's disgraceful, but let's ask for teaching again. It was not enough for her to just meet any swordsman in this world. Even Murem people and their teaching wouldn't be enough for her. She wanted to learn the mysterious swordsmanship that was different from Mugong. So Celeste went to meet UC Autumn. I came here because I wanted to learn swordsmanship again. You pass. Sorry. UC Autumn grabbed Celeste's hands and smiled before pointing towards some place. There's a group of body-strengthening talents who came to us, but because Taylor 9 is someone who handles a natural interfering type superpower, she couldn't teach them. Unlike you, they don't understand what I'm saying. From now on you will learn from me and teach those friends. Can you do it? Yes. Thus, Celeste, who came to UC Autumn to learn swordsmanship, became a professor who taught senior superhumans who were higher in rank and older than herself. Chapter 120. Another League's testing corner marketing ended successfully. In this event, they disclosed Sun Young's swordsmanship's basic movements such as slashing, stabbing, and parrying, as well as a few other one-circle magic. Because it wasn't a face-to-face lesson but an online class, many people would be unable to imitate it even if they saw the video. However, for some people who work hard enough and at the same time smart enough, they would be able to implement it to some extent. The question is, would they be satisfied with just a few moves and few one-circle magic? Of course not. In order to learn the full version of magic and Mugong, they had no choice but to join another league. Even those who were talented enough to learn it through the video will eventually meet a dead end and join another league. Moreover, the majority of superhumans on Earth were actually filled with people with body-strengthening type abilities. So, when a beautiful woman such as Celeste was introduced as the instructor for body-strengthening type groups, the response couldn't be more explosive. That's why you need to work hard. Hyuk understood. Currently, I was sitting cross-legged on top of Celeste. She was in the middle of doing a handstand push-up with only one finger on each hand, with a 100 kg sheet of iron on both of her legs. No matter how strong a C-rank superhuman was, doing a handstand push-up with only one finger in an imperfect posture would be quite laborious. I only ordered her to do this kind of exercise to teach her how to explosively move her chi and ether beyond the limit of C-rank superhuman. It was something that could be done rather easily if one was handling mana. However, I honestly don't know if it was possible with chi and ether. That's why I am currently experimenting with Celeste. I am really glad that she came. I am dying. Don't give up one more. I am really dying. In one fluid movement, Celeste bent forward and snatched the iron plate in the air before landing on the floor. Looking at her complexion, it seems like she's not injured, she was just tired. It seems like ether and essence is completely different. Sorry. No, next experiment no, let's move on to training. I put my hand on her abdomen and pulled up my mana and activated my newly acquired skill. Holy Conversion F rank. It was a skill that converts mana into holy power that could heal wounds and fatigue. Because it was only F rank, the conversion rate was around 150. It wasn't a skill that could be used often, but when I squeezed out all of my mana, Celeste's complexion improved to some extent. Unlike talent, skill could be upgraded by using it repetitively. I was able to find out about this fact thanks to Yekaterina, who constantly entered the library of the White Witch and raised the rank. However, it was almost impossible for me to raise the skill rank through effort alone because of my abysmal talent, just like what the system had explained. My talent was preventing me from doing anything related to effort. Well, it doesn't matter now. It would be better than not doing it at all, though. UC Autumn. Level 152. Stats. Strength 150. Stamina 165. Agility 151. Energy 1. Mana 252. Talent. Vitality SS plus rank. Swordsmanship S rank. Intuition A rank. Quick-wit A rank. Insight B rank. Shooting C rank. Hunting D plus rank. Cooking D minus rank and others. Skill. Protagonist Hunter level 4. Arasanyang Mana Circling Technique SS plus rank. Dharma Heavenly Wind God Technique SS plus rank. Concentration SS rank. White Swordsmanship S rank. Inventory S rank. Sixth Sense B rank. Library of the White Witch C rank. Holy Conversion F rank. Even though my energy stats were still 1, I had become a S rank hunter. You could say that I became a F rank with ridiculous strength. However, Yekaterina, who recently visited the Hunter Association, had told me that the association had their own way to test the power of Murim and magicians who use essence energy. I may be able to get my S rank license sooner or later. There were quite a lot of differences between the S rank and the rank. First of all, when one becomes S rank, they could grasp the movements around them with the slightest disturbance in the air. It could also happen if one had Sixth Sense skill, but because I already had the skill, it seems like it automatically became a B rank. In addition to that, one could move their body more freely. Even if two people had the same stats, and a rank could only use 70 to 80% of their stats, while the S rank could display 100% of their power. Concentration skill had also become SS rank. Thanks to that, I was able to clearly grasp the flow of mana flowing around me. Also, I was able to partially summon Library of the White Witch in front of me. Not long ago, when I was experimenting with the partial summon of Library of the White Witch, I met Yekaterina, who was fast asleep inside the library. It seems like she was overworking her body quite a lot, even though she was happy because she could do anything she wants. In many ways, I feel complicated. Because Yekaterina, who was brought here to serve as my substitute when I wasn't around, was surrounded by hundreds of times more work than me. So, when I, the guild master, had recently been in a position where I received my salary from Yekaterina, I had nothing to say. I was only someone who gave direction for the guild, while Yekaterina was the one who executed it and raised another league. Are you okay now? I am dying. By the way, you speak Korean now. Study. She was still stuttering and could only speak short sentences, but it's still nice since I didn't have to bother using Italian now. She started to run away from me with a weird noise. She looks like a cute younger sister while doing it. I watched quietly before telling her. Okay, next is a special lesson in swordsmanship. Hearing my words, Celeste raised her body with glistening eyes. Somehow, her obvious behavior made me burst into laughter. Do you like swords so much? Nod nod. If you like it so much, why don't you marry a sword? Shake shake. Do you understand my words? Then she pondered for a while before replying in Korean. I also like to ride horses. Translator's note, horse and words have the same Hangul. Oh yes. I am joking. So you can joke too, huh? I will marry someone who is skilled in swordsmanship. Is there anyone like that? I could only think of one person that fit in Celeste's criteria. It was Seol Youngyeon. Whenever she wields a sword, she looks like a pink lotus flower that blooms under the sunset. Shin Haijai often told me that sometimes Seol Youngyeon's enemies fall into ecstasy because of her beautiful swordsmanship without even realizing that they were dead. Of course, the swordsmanship Celeste means was a swordsmanship that explosively releases energy and sharply cuts through the enemies, not Murem's swordsmanship, which effectively strengthened people of Murem's lack of abilities to the limit. However, whatever it was, in front of Seol Youngyeon, who had already reached the peak of swordsmanship, it was all meaningless. I will introduce someone who uses swords well to you later. I don't know about marriage, but you might like her. Good. Celeste's eyes sparkled in expectation. Yes, father, I'm doing well. While walking through downtown Gangnam in the late evening, Celeste called her father, Salvatore Costantini. Since she had become a top YouTuber who got 10M subscribers in just 1 month, she had to use a mask to cover her face because too many people know her. Ha ha, I never thought that you, Seodam, that guy, would become my daughter's instructor. I am now his exclusive disciple. Isn't it means the same? It's completely different. Actually, Celeste was very happy these days. While wielding swords and hunting monsters to strengthen herself was indeed exciting, when it came to real swordsmanship training under Yu Seodam was way better. She was happy even though Yu Seodam always treated her as if she was a punching bag or an experimental subject. Every time they clashed against each other, she could feel the fact that she was alive. She could feel that she was becoming stronger than before. Anyway, I'm glad you seem to be doing well. Unlike herself, his father Salvatore Costantini had a fiery personality but at the same time cooler than anyone else. When he was angry, he was scarier than anyone else. How about you, father, are you well? Of course I'm still young. Celeste looked slightly worried. Few years ago, her father had lost his arms in a mission. The fact that a right-handed swordsman lost his right arm was the same as being completely disabled. It could be said that it was almost impossible for him to act as a hunter anymore. Nevertheless, he continued to work as a hunter with his left arms, but because of his wounds, his health continued to deteriorate, and he had to lie in bed all the time. Probably her obsession to get stronger was related to this. Like a madman, she kept swinging her sword. There was no other way apart from constant training to sharpen her body's strengthening ability. She had no time for anything else other than swinging her sword. It was because she couldn't feel that she was becoming stronger, at least before she met Yu Seodam for the first time. The way, from what I see in the video, I think you've become quite relaxed now, to think my daughter could make a joke. Salvatore was sincerely thrilled. Ever since Celeste was a child, she had always been a mature kid, but recently she had started acting like her age. Sometimes she would take selfies and post them on her social media, although she was expressionless like always. And sometimes she would also crack jokes that seemed to resemble someone Salvatore knew. Now stop doing what you used to do, just focus on your own life. Yes, I will, father. With those words, the phone call ended and Celeste quietly turned her head towards the big television on one side of the street. However, her mind wasn't focused on it at all. She recalled the day when her father told her the story. He was still smiling brightly as he touched the wound on what was left of his right arm. He said that he confronted a warrior of Murim and survived. He said that his lost right arm was nothing but a wound of glory. Afterwards, he told Celeste not to worry because the Supreme One, who imposed a ban on the people of Murim, came in between the fight and cut off the Murim warrior's neck. But Celeste knew that her father's words were false. Because in the first place there was no sign that the Supreme One had arrived, there was also no trace of the battle, and that man's body had never been found. She knew that his father was trying to prevent her from taking revenge for him. However, the flame of vengeance in her heart couldn't be extinguished. Her goal was to find him and cut his right arm, just like what he did to her father. She knew it wouldn't be easy because he was a man who defeated her father. It was a goal that couldn't be achieved in a short period of time, so she was making an effort in order to achieve it even a moment faster. Chinese claims that martial arts are theirs. In this regard, the leader of the Murim League, Xiao Yungyun, directly said. On TV, a video of Xiao Yungyun, the leader of the Murim League as well as the strongest swordsman in the world, was broadcasted. Celeste looked at her for a long time. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.